the ExecMBA podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to feature a conversation I recently recorded with Reed Wall. In addition to being an entrepreneur, Reed is also a student in our Executive MBA class of 2021, and he and I recently sat down to talk a little bit more about his MBA journey, what led him to Darden, and what he has enjoyed about the program so far. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Reed Wall. Reed, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Brett.
All right, so tell us a little bit more about you. Who are you, and what's your background?
Yeah, well, my name's Reed Wall. I'm a DC native. Grew up here, went to St. Albans High School, and then went to Colgate for undergrad. Was a 2009 class of 2009 at Colgate. Played lacrosse there. Since I graduated, I've started and currently own a few men's clothing brands in Washington, D.C., and just started the Darden EMBA program this year, class of 2021.
So what attracted you to the clothing business?
It was something I'd always been interested in. When I was in high school, I had to wear a coat and tie to school every day. And getting my dad's hand-me-down Brooks Brothers shirts, I kind of realized that there was maybe some room for improvement in terms of fit and certain construction elements. So when I was in college, I did a couple of internships. I was one of the first interns at Vineyard Vines right when they were starting out. Got to see their kind of skyrocketing success while I was there. And being a naive college graduate in the middle of a recession, thought, why couldn't I do that? So I got a job for about 8 months, saved up some money, got my first run of shirts done, and as soon as they came in, quit my job and started selling. So wouldn't start a business like that again, but it was certainly a great learning experience.
I feel like there's been so much conversation over the past few years about the fashion industry, the way it's evolving, what it means to have a storefront these days, online, e-commerce. What's that been like to be an entrepreneur in the midst of all of that? Yeah,
there's been a ton of change in the clothing business and retail in general, and it's been really difficult but exciting to navigate the new climate. One of our businesses had about 3 or 4 brick and mortar stores, and about a year and a half, 2 years ago, made the decision to flip the model to a digitally native platform, just to kind of fit what the modern consumer is looking for. So that required us to invest a lot in our technology, make the consumer experience better when we can't actually control it in person. But it was a really cool challenge to take on, and it's gone great so far.
Well, let's talk about your clothing lines. You do some bespoke stuff, and I remember from your application there's a lot of other things that you do as well.
Yeah, so we have a full bespoke clothing line called Reed Wall, very original name, I know. And then our main platform is a made-to-measure suit platform called Diplomat Outfitters, where we have a fit algorithm that we work with and fit customers remotely using that algorithm, which is a great platform, great price point. We found a great factory relationship that allows us to offer a super high-quality product and allows customers to go all the way up the range of quality levels. And then we're also exploring a shoe brand right now that is kind of in its early stages, but I think is going to start to pick up in the next couple of months.
Yeah, I was curious about how you do made-to-order or fitted clothing in an online platform.
Yeah, it's an interesting process. We have a couple different ways that we fit customers. As I mentioned, we have a fit algorithm that's based on a huge database of body scan measurements, which are 100% correct because they're body scanned. And then we use machine learning to take in all of those inputs with a few others like age and certain demographic criteria. And based on a few questions that a customer can answer, things that they already know about themselves from buying clothes, we can then essentially triangulate every single one of their measurements to within about 97, 98% accuracy. And then other customers want to have the old school tape measure process, and so we have a fit form that we send to them, and they can take it to their trusted tailor and get fit up that way.
Wow. So did you imagine when you got in the clothing business that you'd be doing some machine learning?
Absolutely not. No, I just thought we were going to be making some cool clothes and selling them on the internet. But, it really goes to show that you have to continue to evolve and adapt as you learn your customer and you learn the market.
Certainly seems like there's also a lot of competition. I'm just walking around DC in the bespoke, tailored.
Yeah, it's very competitive now. A lot of people are getting into it. We're lucky that we've been doing it for a little bit of time, so we have a solid reputation and also have the advantage of actually knowing the business side of it. So we feel like we're pretty well positioned. But you always want to stay one step ahead of your competitors, so it's good to kind of keep an eye on things.
Well, I'm curious about sort of the customer acquisition strategy. Is it mostly word of mouth? Is it once a customer knows you, knows your product, then it's just sort of maintaining that relationship?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. And a lot of brands now invest heavily in online customer acquisition. We have not done any of that. We are entirely word of mouth, which I think is the kind of truest form of customer acquisition. You get more loyal customers, and it requires you to treat your current customers extremely well to make sure that they will go recommend your product to someone else.
Do you have any of your classmates starting to talk to you about suits?
A lot of them, yeah. I guess they're still in businesses where they have to wear suits, so we're happy to help.
So I'm curious about an MBA. Was it always part of the plan? Was it a relatively recent idea?
Yeah, it's something that I've had on my mind for a little bit of time, but I guess only in the last year or so decided in earnest that I was going to go get one. I realized that in my professional career, looking to with an eye kind of towards the future, what I want to get into, which is private equity and possibly starting my own firm, doing acquisitions of other companies in our space, or partnering with another larger firm. I knew that there were some fundamental skills that I needed to have to get into that, and that was kind of where the initial idea for an MBA kind of sprouted.
One of the things that we've talked about here on the podcast with entrepreneurs is I feel like within the entrepreneurial community, there's always this debate about to get an MBA or not get an MBA. Do you need an MBA? Maybe just do business and you'll learn along the way. You have any thoughts on that?
I do. I think both schools of thought have their merits. I tend to believe that the more you can learn, the better. There are a lot of things that you can learn as an entrepreneur that there's no better boot camp for learning business, but you also don't learn a lot of the foundational elements of certain aspects of business. So you're kind of forced to learn a lot of these things yourself, which can get a little bit messy, and you learn some practices that maybe are not 100% correct. I wanted to kind of fill in some of those gaps and shore everything up as I kind of looked to get into other businesses, and I thought an MBA was the best way for me to do that.
So I'm curious about the move from a clothing business to also including potentially a shoe line. How do you think about additional opportunities? Are you looking at fashion trends? Are you listening to your customers? So what's your approach?
Yeah. So one of the things that we've been able to do is with our initial business was develop a great customer community, and so listening to them, things that might be a market need for those customers. We already have built-in people that wanted to buy certain products. So when we decided to introduce a shoe line, it's like, well, our customers are also buying shoes, and they are really interested in a particular style of shoes. So maybe we can offer that to them. Now you're obviously going outside of your own customer base to acquire new customers for that particular brand, but it's a great place to start. And that was kind of how we looked at it. We had our own little kind of test community to try new things, which is a pretty unique position, I think.
Seems like it might de-risk some of the choice.
Exactly.
You have people you can go directly to. Hey, we're launching a shoe line. Help us think about.
Yeah. So instead of having to go straight to mass market, you can kind of start small, get your minimum viable product together with a group of people that you trust that are not going to, they're not going to blow you up if it's bad, but but no, it's a great place to test new things and exactly de-risk your portfolio.
So you're early in the program, early days here. You just completed your second weekend residency. Got exams on the horizon, your first set of exams.
Thanks for reminding me.
Oh, sorry about that. So how are things going? I always tell prospective students that this is in some ways the most intense time in the program as you're adjusting back to school and getting used to Darden and first sort of in-person components of the program. How's it going?
It's going well. It's definitely an adjustment having homework again. That was certainly an eye-opener. I've got buddies on my text chain saying, "Hey, do you want to go play 9 holes?" And nope, I've got class tonight. But no, it's been great. It's really exciting to get back in the classroom and learn, especially things that are or subjects that are really, really interesting. I think that's one of the great things about the classes that we have is they're all applicable to things that you would go and use that week at work. So you're engaged, you're accountable, and then you can also immediately apply that knowledge to whatever you're doing.
So you started out with 3 courses: global economics, or what's called GEM, decision analysis, or DA in the parlance of Darden, as well as a professional advancement course with Connie Dunlop, or PAC as it is known. Tough slate of classes, I would say, to start. Or at least that's the impression I get, that these are some of the more challenging classes. What's your experience been?
Yeah, I am kind of, I like staying on top of kind of economic trends. So it was really kind of cool to add a different perspective to the things that I'd seen on, whether it's CNBC or read in the Wall Street Journal or The Economist. That it's been a really, really interesting class. Decision analysis was exactly the class that I feel like I needed right now, which was to kind of shore up some of your, my Excel skills. Extremely useful tool, and we're learning new ways to build models and test out uncertainties, which is, there's really no line of business where you're not going to use that skill set now. And the professional advancement class, which I know is I guess this is the first year that they've been starting it as early in the program as they have, but I think it's really a great place. There's no better time to start thinking about your future than right when you start getting an MBA, because especially in an executive MBA, I think that the most that you can get out of it, your level of satisfaction with the program is directly tied to how well your career goes, immediately after the program and then moving forward. But really making you think about it early on, I think, is extremely valuable, and it really kind of shapes your direction, or at least it's starting to shape my direction as I kind of jump into this program.
Yeah, it used to be in the middle of the program, and kind of look at that and you wonder. I feel like there's a couple reasons we ended up at that place. You kind of want to let students settle in before you ask them all these big questions. But the more we thought about it, particularly with this desire to have more sequenced career-related curricular programming and coursework, you kind of need to start there with people. And plus, this is a professional decision. The decision to come back to school at this particular juncture in your career, it's in service of career goals and advancing your career and all these kinds of things. So it made a lot of sense to put it up front, and almost to a person. When we've talked to graduates about some of the recent updates, they're so envious that you get to have that class with Connie, who is universally beloved, has been on the podcast before, early, and to start some of that work and to start setting that plan and talking with your classmates about what you want to do and hearing how they can be helpful to you. Yeah,
it's been great, and I'm so appreciative that you all made that switch, because I've already started to kind of map some things out and have gotten in touch with some people in the Darden network, and they've been incredibly open and willing to share their experience with me. So it's great to kind of plant that seed and get you to start moving in the direction that you want to get to.
So you mentioned homework was an adjustment. School is generally an adjustment for everyone in this program. even if someone has already done a master's program while working, Darden has some unique aspects, right? All the reading, case discussions, all this kind of stuff. So how are you managing your time? What's been your approach thus far? Any lessons learned along the way?
Yeah. So my wife is also in the second year of an Executive MBA program, so I got to see from her, what the time requirements look like while working full time. So I didn't see a whole lot of her last year, but so if I figured if I was not going to see her again for another year, I might as well try to do something similar. But no, it's the time required. I mean, you definitely have to map out some, okay, I've got to focus on some school stuff today. You carve out some time in your day and you do it. I'm fairly comfortable setting my own schedule. Being an entrepreneur, there's a lot of autonomy and independence, but with that comes a lot of responsibility to get everything you need done. So I was able to fairly easily fit that into my schedule, but I know in talking with some of my classmates, it's been a lot of work to just kind of either get up early or stay up late, and but you just got to make the time to do the work, because it is a lot of work. But it's all for a there's a reason why we're all here and we want to learn. So you're pretty motivated to do it.
Yeah, and Darden is an incredible platform for learning. You get to not only read these cases and maybe work with a small group to get ready for class, you also come to class and you get to hear how your classmates think about what you just read, which may change your ideas and stretch your learning. So I'm curious about what the class experience has been like for you. Had you had case method before? Was that new?
Yeah, I had not. It was actually one of the things that drew me to Darden. I think that they had a statistic or early on in the program where if you just read something, you have X percentage of retention. If you just hear something, you have another percentage of retention. But if you both hear it, learn it, and then say it, then the learning retention skyrockets. And I think that that's absolutely true. First off, but the case method also keeps you accountable. I mean, there's a chance that you get cold called, and the most terrifying thing is going and getting cold called and not being prepared. So it really does hold you accountable to doing your work and making sure that you're ready to go when class starts, and you've got your full attention directed towards your classmates and the professor with the whole discussion. It's great, and I've loved it so far.
Have you enjoyed the weekend residencies? I know that those were pretty full days.
Yeah, they're really intense, very full days of classes, but it's they're great. They're really a great experience, because I think one of the best things about Darden is obviously everyone's smart and accomplished and all of that, but I think they're all really good people. And so just being able to get to know everybody has been awesome, and you kind of get to spend some time with them after classes talking about the course material or even something completely different, which is almost even better. But I think that's where y'all in the admissions team really do a fantastic job of really building up the community of Darden, because it does feel like we're there's an extra level beyond just your kind of personal accomplishments and how well you can kind of retain information.
Well, something we think about, and I think one of the things that we thought about when we came here to the D.C. area is that we still wanted to maintain that residential feel. Right? In these weekend residencies, we knew that for local folks, Darden would become extremely convenient and accessible. It would present the opportunity potentially to still be connected to your family or partner, or significant other, your life outside of school. And we have tried to emphasize with students, block out this time, be present with your classmates, treat it like a business trip. Use the hotel. Lodging is included in the cost of the program, so that everybody in your life knows, this is really important for you too. And yes, you'll be home on Sunday, but, while you're in residency, be present with your classmates.
Yeah, I live, a 6-minute Uber ride from campus, but I still stay at the hotel, or I have the last few residencies, and it's been great to just get fully immersed in the program.
I think that catches people by surprise, honestly. We actually get most questions from people like, do I have to use the hotel? Is there any way to not pay for the lodging? And we're like, you're going to want to use the hotel. I know it sounds strange, but it's helpful to the people in your life in terms of understanding what the residency means for your time and availability. There's also sort of a psychological benefit for you in that it signals to you that you're now in school, right? That you have kind of demarcated this space and you are, in class mode, and you're around your classmates who are obviously at the hotel. Makes all the social stuff a lot easier. You had a pretty big weekend in terms of, club night, extracurricular activities on display on Friday, and then the +1 event on Saturday. So
yeah, couldn't agree more. It's been great.
So what advice would you share with prospective students? We ask all the current students this, and may have been some lessons learned along the way.
I think in terms of, making the decision to apply, there really is no perfect time to do it. So you just have to take the leap. I think my best advice would be, if you're really thinking seriously about it, just do it. The difference between letting an opportunity slip through your fingers and fully seizing it, I think starts with committing fully and just doing it. I know we're so early on in the program, but I'm pretty confident that this is one of the best decisions I've made thus far in my professional career.
What are you looking forward to when you think about the months ahead? You've got you almost closed out Q1, which leaves nine more quarters, but those will fly by, I promise.
Yeah, I think in tying into the professional advancement class that we're taking now, I'm really excited to start making steps immediately towards advancing my career. I feel like I have every resource I need right at my fingertips, which is incredibly empowering. To make the steps that I want to take for the rest of my career. I mean, it's the next 2 years, I've got a full team behind me, and that's something that you're not gonna get a whole lot of places.
One of the things that we talk with prospective students about is, if you are looking to do something different from a career standpoint, it's a real luxury to be in the program and to have a professional advancement course. You have dedicated career advisors here to support you sort of on the individual level. They also do programming. Just this past Sunday, there was a career presentation. One of the things that they've done recently that I've really enjoyed is they have students share their career story. We've had some students talk about the career arc. Those are always fun. But then you also have, as you mentioned, the alumni network. What have those interactions been like with the alums? They've
been awesome. I mean, you start from a place of familiarity because they've been through the program. They know what you're going through, and they're excited for you because they enjoyed their experience so much. I had lunch last week with a Darden EMBA from, I think it was 2014, talking about some of his professional experiences that were applicable to what, I was thinking about doing. And he was, he didn't need to even talk to me, but he instead of, I offered to hop on a call, and he said, why don't we grab lunch? And so drove down to Richmond, and we had a great meal. And she was extremely open and helpful with all of my questions, which he had no obligation to do. But I think there was that certain level of connection to Darden that opens folks up, and it's a really powerful network because there's so many people who have accomplished so many great things that are just worth talking to open your mind and help you think about things differently.
So you don't have a lot of classmates who work in the clothing business. Do you see that as an asset? I imagine a lot of your classmates are interested in what you do, want to talk to you more about it.
Sure, yeah, and I'm happy to talk with them about it. But I also have a ton of classmates that are in equally interesting fields, and so I feel just as lucky to be around them and to learn from their experience. Because we're all in this together, and if folks think I'm interesting, that's really flattering. But I think they're just as interesting.
As a DC native, there are not that many DC. They exist, but certainly feels a bit transient here at times.
Yeah, I mean, people have lived here for 15, 20 years, but I've got a couple more on them, which is rare.
Do your classmates come to you for suggestions? Have you been able to share any tips or insights about the DC area?
They've asked me, but honestly, they probably have a better idea of what's cool and what's not in the city. I can give them the names of a few restaurants that have since closed, but that's about all I got over them.
So, Reed, coming back to your career goal, so you started a business. You obviously have helped take that business through some transformation. You mentioned an interest in private equity. How did you get interested in private equity? What appeals to you about that?
So over the years, have had a couple opportunities to buy businesses that were in different states, whether they'd been mismanaged and the owner needed to sell them, or they were good businesses that would have complemented my own. Have gone down the road of exploring what an acquisition looks like. I've gotten fairly close to doing it, and it hasn't happened for various reasons. In doing that, one, I loved the deal process, of analyzing and kind of taking in the full scope of what each business can bring. I thought that my experience, having founded and started businesses, was a valuable perspective to have at the table that I was at. But in doing that, I really, I enjoyed that, and then also knew that we had not gotten any across the goal line. And I was able to see that there were a few things that I was missing in my analysis of those businesses that I could learn how to do that if I had an MBA. Also, the fees of if you're outsourcing a lot of the M&A diligence, that can get really expensive. And so if you can do it yourself, you can save yourself a lot of money. So from a cost perspective, this is actually a fantastic deal for me.
So I imagine given your experience, it's got to be fascinating to look at other people's businesses and see, how they're operating. I would think that would be incredibly interesting.
It is. I mean, yeah, I could see, if other folks who were more financially inclined could see like, well, why was this founder doing this? This doesn't make any sense. I could kind of say, well, no, there actually is. These are the reasons why they might have gotten themselves into this mess. It's not a great place to be, but they're not a bad person for having been there. So I was able to kind of bring a little bit of that to the table. And it's extremely interesting to see, especially successful businesses, how they've achieved what they've achieved. And you can, whether or not you end up buying them, you can certainly learn a lot.
I would think that many of the folks who work in that space, looking at these businesses, don't have a background like yours. Your background would be fairly unique.
I would think so, but I'm still in the early process of finding that out.
If I'm a business owner and I'm looking to sell, having someone across the table who understands would be, I think, appreciated.
Yeah, I think there's a certain level of connection that I've found certainly helps. You're not. You've got a level of kind of equality when you're sitting across the table from another founder. You know that they can understand where you're coming from and vice versa. Whereas in a lot of other situations, you're just staring at a guy who's got a checkbook and is just looking to find anything wrong with what you've done.
And I would think there'd be a fair amount of empathy to your earlier point about being able to understand maybe the sequence of decisions that lead to a certain place. Having been there yourself, sort of maybe navigated some of those waters. Yeah, no,
certainly, and I think it removes a lot of the kind of personal doubt from the other founder that they know that they might not be in the best position, but as long as someone's looking at them as with the assumption that they're a good person and they've done things with the best of intentions, they can be a little bit more open with you.
Well, private equity is an interesting thing because it's not only sort of financial, there's also a management component, communications component, sort of as you look at someone's business holistically, you think about enterprise perspective and all the things that you get here at Darden.
Yeah, exactly. I have a certain experience running a business, but there's a whole lot more out there and a lot of perspective that I'd love to have, and I'm really excited to gain that here at Darden, both in the classroom and learning from my classmates.
Well, Reed, thanks for taking some time here early on a Tuesday. It's always great talking with you, and good luck in the months ahead in the program.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Brett. Thanks for having me.
And that was my conversation with Reed Wall, an Executive MBA format student in our class of 2021. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at exec, that's EXEC, MBA at darden.virginia.edu. And until next time, thanks for listening.